What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Yes, I am back. Of course, I took a pretty extended hiatus. That's because I was taking advantage of a wonderful opportunity in sports media that I will let you guys know more about at a later time. But for right now, I am back, and I had to come back just in time for the WNBA season. The 2026 WNBA season tips off tomorrow, the historic 30th season of WNBA basketball. It's going to be a year-long celebration that I think is going to be absolutely off the charts incredible. But before we get to the games, we got to do some previews and predictions. So I'm going to be previewing all 15 of the teams, giving you some brief analysis, a brief recap of last season, what they did in the offseason, some analysis, and then, of course, we will lock in our 2026 WNBA season predictions, picking our playoff teams, our finals matchup, our champion. I wanted to get this thing out a little earlier in the week, but of course, life stuff happened. But nevertheless, we're here, and let's go ahead and get into these previews. So how I'm going to do this, I'm going to go conference by conference. I'm going to do the Eastern teams, and then I'm going to do the Western teams, and then of course we'll go from there. So I'm going to start in the Eastern Conference, and I'm going to start with the team who finished with the best record in the Eastern Conference last year. That is the Atlanta Dream. Atlanta, of course, coming off of their best season in franchise history. They won 30 games in year one under the new coach at the time, Carl Smesko. They went 30-14. They were a 3 seed in the standings. Of course, they finished with the best record in the East, but they shockingly, at least to me anyway, lost in the first round to the Indiana Fever, and Atlanta absolutely reloaded in the offseason. They had an absolutely stellar free agency period. They brought back all of their starters, and most of them having career years under Smesko last year. Of course, re-signing Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray, two of the better two-way players in the game right now. Both of them are very, very incredible three-level scoring threats. Of course, Alicia Gray was an MVP finalist last year. Ryan Howard, an all-star. Naz Hillman, the reigning sixth player of the year. Bree Jones, an all-star, who's going to be missing a good chunk of the year as she's recovering from a knee injury. So I would expect Naz Hillman to get plenty of burn in the starting lineup. And, oh, by the way, in case y'all haven't heard, they traded for Angel Reese in the offseason. Angel Reese, the two-time All-Star, one of the best rebounders in the game right now, led the league in rebounding in each of her 2 years that she's been in the league. And how about this? She's going to a team who last year led the league in rebounding. And this is an Atlanta team who last year was second in offensive rating, fifth in points per game, and third in three-pointers made. And then on top of that, defensively, they were second in defensive rating, fourth in points allowed, and fifth in points allowed per game. And last year, from the way they were playing, Atlanta was in the championship conversation for most of the year. And after the moves that they've made this offseason, I think this is a team who is firmly in that conversation this year, and I definitely expect Atlanta to be a top 4 seed as far as the playoff standings are concerned. So Atlanta Dream, incredible offseason for them. Next up, we have the New York Liberty. This is another team that's running it back with their veteran core in Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu and Jonquil Jones. And of course, they went out this offseason and signed Satu Sabali, who is just coming off of that finals appearance with the Phoenix Mercury, which is significant. Of course, New York finished 27-17 last year, fifth in the standings, and lost in the first round against Phoenix. And on top of that, they're getting back Benijah Laney Hamilton, who missed all of last year with a knee injury, so that's pretty big there. And they're going to be without Sabrina Ionescu for at least the first couple of weeks of the season after she went down with an ankle injury in the Liberty's last preseason game against Connecticut, which, by the way, they open up the season against Connecticut tomorrow too. And then, of course, after they lost in the first round last year, they fired Sandy Brondello, who they won a championship with just a couple of years ago, and they brought in Chris DeMarco, a longtime NBA assistant coach with the Golden State Warriors. And listen, this Liberty team is going to have high expectations this year, and understandably so. I mean, this is going to be a team running it back with its veteran core, and they're in win now mode. This is a team who has the roster, has the pieces to compete for a championship. I mean, like I said, they're just a couple of years removed from winning the WNBA championship in 2024. So there's going to be pressure on this team to perform. There's going to be pressure on the coach, a rookie head coach, no true experience as an actual head coach. So this is a team that's going to have a lot of pressure. The coach is going to have a lot of pressure, but this Liberty team has a lot of talent, and they are absolutely in the championship conversation as it stands right now. All right, next up we have the Indiana Fever, and last year the Fever went on one of the most improbable playoff runs you are going to see. This was a team that was absolutely derailed by injuries. I mean, if you look at the injuries, Caitlin Clark, gone for the year with a groin injury. Sid Colson, gone for the year with a torn ACL. Chloe Bibby, Ari McDonald, Sophie Cunningham, all of them gone for the year last year. But they were still a 6th seed in the WNBA standings. They pulled the stunner against a Atlanta team who, like I said earlier, thought could contend for a championship, and they found a way to make it to overtime of Game 5 of the W semifinals, where they took the eventual champion Las Vegas Aces to the absolute brink. And that run, of course, was fueled by the stellar play of Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston. And with how great Kelsey Mitchell played last year, she became an MVP finalist. She got some MVP votes. And Aaliyah Boston in the offseason absolutely cashing in, becoming the highest paid player in WNBA history, signing that 4-year, $6 million deal. And on top of that, I felt like last year was a coming out party for Aaliyah Boston, more or less, as one of the better centers in the WNBA right now. And honestly, I think Aaliyah Boston's going to end up in the MVP conversation this year. And we already know how great she is defensively in the paint, but it looks like her offense is evolving as well. I mean, even going back to Unrivaled, it looked like she was getting a little more comfortable taking 3-point shots and expanding her offense. And if she unlocks that 3-level scoring, buckle up. That's all I'm going to say about that. And of course, they signed Monique Billings, who's coming off of a really good season with the Golden State Valkyries. And they also signed Ty Harris, who's been in the league for a while. And of course, they drafted Raven Johnson with the 10th overall pick. And folks, Raven was one of my favorite players to watch in college basketball. I mean, Raven Johnson, folks, is a winning ball player. The Indiana Fever struck gold with this Raven Johnson pick. I mean, any team who was going to pick Raven Johnson was going to pick up a winning ball player. I mean, she is one of the better lockdown defenders from this draft class. She became more aggressive as a scorer this past year at South Carolina. And listen, if you're a South Carolina fan or you've been paying attention to Raven Johnson in college, I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know. I mean, she is everything you want in a point guard. She is a facilitator offensively, and she is an absolute menace defensively. I mean, seeing the Fever in the preseason this year, whenever Raven Johnson checked in, I mean, she made immediate impact. I mean, she came in, got a couple of steals, turning defense into offense. I mean, listen, I can see Raven getting some significant playing time and fully taking advantage of her minutes with the Fever. I mean, she definitely adds defense to the Fever's bench, which is something that they've been looking for a while. And I would not be surprised if we saw Raven Johnson in the Rookie of the Year conversation as we get down to the year. But this is an Indiana Fever team who I think this year is firmly in the title conversation. I mean, if they did all of that last year with that roster, I mean, imagine what they can do with a fully healthy roster. And of course, having Caitlin Clark in the backcourt with her shooting, of course, pulling it from the logo and everything. But Indiana, they're gonna be a really good team this year. They're gonna be in that title conversation as we get down to it. Next up, we have the Washington Mystics. And listen, this is a Mystics team that is very young. The youngest in the league, actually. And of course, last year, they had a really good draft, drafting Sonia Citron and Kiki Iriafen, who were all-stars last year. And we're finally going to see their other first-round pick from last year in Georgia Amore, who missed all of last year after tearing her ACL in training camp last year. And I can see Amore being a very good, very electric piece for them. I mean, she was a phenomenal player at Kentucky and at Virginia Tech, of course, leading that Hokie team to the Final Four a few years ago. And then this year in the first round, they also had 3 first-round picks, and they went size heavy with their first-round picks. They took Lauren Betts and Angela Dugalich, the UCLA teammates coming off of that national championship this year, and they also took Cody McMahon out of Ole Miss with their other first round pick. And listen, like I said, this is a young team, and I'm very concerned about their lack of shooting depth. But outside of that, Lauren Betts, as we didn't already know, she's going to be good. Really good. I mean, she is an anchor in the paint, great rim protector, and I really love her mid-range shot. And listen, like I said too, this is a young team. I mean, the oldest players on the roster, Shakira Austin and Michaela Onyenwere, who they just signed from Chicago. And listen, this Mystics team, I think they're going to be a feisty bunch. I don't know if I'm ready to say they're a playoff contender yet, but I think this Mystics team is going to be feisty. I think they're going to be a tough out as far as the season is concerned. All right, next up, we have the Connecticut Sun. And of course, if we didn't already know, this is going to be a very bittersweet year for the Connecticut Sun, as this is their final year in Connecticut before they go to Houston, expectedly to become the Houston Comets, depending on how this copyright battle works with the Comets name. But nevertheless, this is a Connecticut team who only won 11 games last year, but they were really solid towards the end of the year last year. They were tough, they were competitive, and of course they went out and signed Brittany Griner in the offseason, who is going to be on a mission this year, because I remember her saying in the preseason that apparently there's been people saying that she's old, she's washed, she should retire and all that stuff. And listen, having a vintage Brittany Griner season is not really outlandish. And of course, they traded for Diamond Miller, the number 2 pick in the 2023 draft, and they also brought in Kennedy Burke, who was really good for the Liberty coming off of the bench. And they also drafted UCLA teammates Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. They took Nella Gloma from France with the 12th overall pick. And I'm really interested in seeing how Connecticut is going to look from a defensive standpoint. Of course, we know about their first round picks from last year, Sanaya Rivers and Anissa Morrow. And listen, Sanaya Rivers, one of the better defenders of her draft class last year, and she's emerging too as one of the better two-way players of her draft class. I mean, she was really good in Unrivaled this year too, brushing up her offense as well. And listen, I think this is going to be a tough Connecticut team. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the year they're fighting for a playoff spot, but this is a very tough, very competitive team on paper as far as Connecticut is concerned. And next up, we have the Chicago Sky. And listen, Chicago last year, a complete disaster for them. Only 10 wins, finishing second to last in the WNBA standings. And listen, the Chicago Sky, I did not think I would be saying this sentence, but the Chicago Sky had one of the best off seasons of any team as far as free agency is concerned. They brought in Dejanay Carrington, Skylar Diggins, Azare Stevens, and Natasha Cloud, and they traded for Rakia Jackson as part of the Ariel Atkins sign and trade with the Sparks. And listen, Rakia is a player who has all-star potential. She's getting a change of scenery in Chicago, and I really see her doing well. And of course, Azare Stevens, she's going to miss some time earlier in the year. I think she's recovering from a knee injury last I saw. But Azare Stevens, of course, a Swiss Army knife as a post player. I mean, great rim protector, great shooter, and of course building up their defense with Dejanay Carrington, who's gonna also, I think, miss time to start the year, and of course bolstering up their backcourt with Skylar Diggins and Natasha Cloud, and also drafting Gabriela Jaquez with the 5th overall pick out of UCLA. Very historic draft for UCLA, by the way, who is well known for her versatility and her scoring. And it looks like Chicago is going to make Camila Cardoso the nucleus of the team. And I can see Camila having a really good year. And from what I've seen, especially from the last couple of years that she's been in the league, she is at her best when she is aggressive, especially from an offensive standpoint. And this roster is very much an improvement compared to last year's roster on paper. I think Chicago is going to be a feisty bunch. And I'll honestly just say this. If Chicago gets to August and September and they find themselves in contention for a playoff spot, to me, I think it's a successful season for them. And I mean, year two under Tyler Marsh. I mean, if they're in the playoff race at the end of the year, it's a successful season for what it's worth. All right, next up, we have the Toronto Tempo, one of the league's 2 new expansion teams this year. And listen, they have a decent backcourt setup bringing in Marina Mabry and Brittany Sykes. Of course, Sykes, I've said as a bucket getter. Marina Mabry, a really good shooter. They also drafted Kiki Rice with the number 6 overall pick. I told you UCLA had a really good draft night. And listen, at first glance, it looks like they have some really good shooting threats with bringing in Aaliyah Nye, coming off of her rookie season with the Aces, and Lexi Held coming from Phoenix. And plus, they have a couple of really good bigs with Temi Fangbele coming off of a good season with the Golden State Valkyries, and Niara Sabali coming from New York, winning the championship with the Liberty in 2024. And speaking of the Liberty and championships, they have the championship head coach, Sandy Brandello, formerly of New York. And listen, this is a team that I can see being pretty good this year. I mean, I don't know about the playoffs. Of course, with any expansion team, there's a lot of unknowns with them. But I really like what they did with this roster. I really like what they're building up as far as Toronto is concerned. All right, let's go to the Western Conference. And it's only appropriate, folks, that we start our Western previews with the reigning, defending WNBA champions, the Las Vegas Aces. Of course, we know how the season went last year. This was a team who, for the first half of last year, was teetering on that 500 line. They were teetering in and out of the playoffs. And then at the beginning of August, they got absolutely dismantled by the Minnesota Lynx on a nationally televised game. Got blown out by the Lynx by 53 points. And listen, as the story goes, after that game, they ended up closing the season on a 16-game winning streak. They took down the Seattle Storm, who they have owned in the postseason over the last few years. They took them down in the first round. They survived that 5-game war against the Indiana Fever in the semifinal. And then, of course, they swept the Phoenix Mercury in 4 games, the first 4 out of 7 playoff series in the WNBA last year, to capture their 3rd championship in the last 4 years and officially be crowned as the league's latest dynasty. And, of course, let's take a second here to talk about A'ja Wilson. A'ja Wilson right now is on pace, when it's all said and done, to go down as the greatest player to ever play in the WNBA. Honestly, I think you can say that about A'ja right now, because no player in WNBA history has won 4 MVPs until A'ja Wilson did it last year. No player in WNBA or NBA history, for that matter, won a championship, league MVP, defensive player of the year, scoring title, championship, and finals MVP in the same season until A'ja Wilson did it last year. No player in WNBA history put up a 30-point, 20-rebound game until A'ja Wilson did it. She averaged, of course, 30 and 17 in the postseason. And then, of course, going back to 2024, putting up the first 1,000-point season in WNBA history, and dang near having another 1,000-point season last year. And I'm going to stop the accolades right there, because if I keep on listing stuff that A'ja's done over the last few years, that's going to take longer than the previews. But nevertheless, the Aces are running it back with their big 3, A'ja Wilson, Jackie Young, and Chelsea Gray. Plus, they're bringing back Jewel Lloyd, who was huge for them, especially coming off of the bench in the second half of last year. And listen, the Aces went out too in the offseason, and they signed Kennedy Carter. And I'll tell you this, the Las Vegas Aces may have pulled the steal of the offseason with the Kennedy Carter signing. I mean, we know Kennedy Carter can score the basketball. I mean, in 2024, she was the Chicago Sky's leading scorer, averaged 17 points per game, and ironically, that 2024 season, she scored her season-high 34 points against the Aces. Of course, she was out of the league last year, balling in Mexico and I believe a couple of other countries. And listen, if Kennedy Carter stays locked in and she cleans up the on and off court stuff and provides that spark off the bench, I think she could be a sixth player of the year candidate, if not the favorite. I mean, with the moves that the Aces made this offseason, re-signing their vets, and of course with the Carter signing, of course drafting Janiah Barker in the second round, and of course having Becky Hammon, who has become probably one of the greatest coaches in WNBA history. I think you can make that conversation for right now. This is an Aces team who I still think is the team to beat in the WNBA. And I would not be shocked at all if A'ja Wilson went out there and won her third straight MVP and the fifth overall, because it is hard to find a player in the WNBA right now who is playing better basketball than A'ja Wilson. All right, next up, let's go to the Minnesota Lynx. This is a Minnesota Lynx team who last year finished with the best record in the WNBA, 34-10. They were number one in a whole bunch of statistical categories, but this is a Lynx team who lost a lot of key players in the offseason. They lost Bridget Carlton to the Portland Fire expansion draft. They lost Natisha Heidemann to Seattle, and they lose the co-defensive player of the year, Alana Smith, and Jessica Shepard to Dallas. And on top of that, they're going to be without Nafisa Collier at least until the start of June, as she's still recovering from ankle surgery. But of course, they drafted Olivia Miles out of TCU with the number 2 pick in the draft this year. And Olivia Miles, I mean, we already know from watching her in college, she can score. I mean, she's got great court vision, and she is one heck of a passer. That is a really good draft pick for Minnesota's backcourt, along with having Courtney Williams, who more than likely is going to go back to being the 2 guard. They also brought in the veteran Natasha Howard, who was part of that 2017 championship team. And we can't forget Cheryl Reeve being a Hall of Fame head coach. And I'm going to believe that she's going to have this team ready to play, even with the Nafisa Collier injury. But I don't really see this Minnesota team in the championship conversation this year. I think their championship window, as we know it right now, is close. I mean, their depth last year with Carlton, Heidemann, Shepard, and Smith and everybody, I think that was the reason why they were so good last year. Especially when Fee missed all that time. Well, let me say it like this. I think their depth last year was the reason why they were so good when Fee went out with that ankle injury in August last year and missed all that time. But I think this Minnesota team is going to be a competitive bunch, and I can see this team staying afloat, navigating the Nafisa Collier injury. All right, so next up, let's go to the Phoenix Mercury. Of course, the Mercury coming off of that finals run. And listen, last year when I made my season predictions, I picked the Mercury to just be on the outside looking in from a playoff spot. And boy, oh boy, did they prove my behind wrong early, as they went out and started winning and winning and winning, of course, going all the way to the finals last year. And look, they lost Satu Sabali in free agency to the Liberty, which is significant, of course, averaging 16-6 in the regular season and 19-7 in the postseason, and was a key player for the Mercury, especially earlier in the year when Kalia Copper and Alyssa Thomas were missing time with injuries. But nevertheless, they still have Alyssa Thomas, who's a proven winner, setting dang near every triple-double record known to the WNBA world. They still have Kalia Copper, former champion, former finals MVP, and they have their fair share of vets, along with having DeWanna Bonner and Sammy Whitcomb. And Whitcomb, I think, is going to miss some time early in the year. And, of course, they had all of those undrafted free agents last year. And, of course, bringing back Monika Koa-Makani, who was really good for them as far as last year is concerned. And I can see this Mercury team being well in the playoff standings again this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this Mercury team back in the championship conversation as far as that's concerned. All right, next up, let's go to the Seattle Storm. And listen, Seattle completely hit the reset button in the offseason. I mean, for the third time, if you can believe it, the third time in the last 4 years, they get bounced by the Aces in the playoffs. And after that, after losing to the Aces last year in the first round, they fired Noelle Quinn. They hired the longtime assistant Sonia Rahman, and they're going younger. And it seems like they're going to be building around their young center, Dominique Malanga, entering into her second year. They drafted Awa Fam Thiam from Spain, and a lot of people liked her to go number 1 overall in the draft from this year. And they've got another young, talented post player in Ezi Magbagor, who is one of the better young defenders in the game. So their young front court is very much coming together. And then in the backcourt, they acquired Flau'jae Johnson in that insane draft night trade with the Golden State Valkyries. And listen, I think Flau'jae is going to work really well in Seattle here. Because, of course, Seattle, we already know they're not competing for anything. I mean, they pretty much said goodbye to their veteran core. And I think we're going to see some high usage from Flau'jae this year. I mean, Seattle is the perfect place for her to grow and develop while getting plenty of burn on the court. So she should end up doing very well as far as Seattle is concerned. They also brought in Stephanie Dolson and Natisha Heidemann in free agency. And listen, I think this Seattle team is going to be a fun watch. I think they're going to be a pretty tough out. I don't think they're going to win a whole lot of games this year, but I think they'll be a pretty tough team as far as Seattle is concerned. And then next up, we have the Golden State Valkyries. And of course, the Valkyries last year, coming off of a season, charting territory where no expansion team has ever charted before. They won 23 games and made the playoffs in their first year of existence, which is unheard of from an expansion team standpoint. Natalie Nakase winning Coach of the Year last year, and they had a really quietly good offseason. They re-signed Kayla Thornton, who was an all-star before the foot injury, before she missed the end of the year with a foot injury. They also re-signed the reigning most improved player in Veronica Burton, coming off of a career year, averaging nearly 12 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, and nearly 2 stocks per game. And they added another all-star in Gabby Williams, returning home to the Bay Area. I mean, they got a lot of good young talent. Janelle Salon on the all-rookie team last year. Ju Joyce, their first-round pick from last year, is expected to come over this year from Lithuania. But their lack of size is very much a concern. They lost Monique Billings and Temi Fangbele in the offseason. And on top of that, I literally got the news within the hour that Ileana Rupert is pregnant. So the Valkyries are going in with a small lineup. I still think they could still be pretty good, but the lack of size is very much a concern for as far as the Golden State Valkyries are concerned. All right, next up we have the Los Angeles Sparks. And last year the Sparks massively improved from having their worst season in franchise history in 2024, only winning 8 games that year, and they turned around and last year were banging on the door of a playoff spot, just barely missing out on it in the last week of the regular season. But I think this could very well be the year that the Sparks finally break through and end that 6-year-long playoff drought. This is going to be a strong veteran-led team. They brought back one of their great players in franchise history, in Nneka Ogwumike, the former champion and MVP, of course, part of that Sparks championship team in 2016. Of course, they have Kelsey Plum, who literally signed for a 1-year deal for $999,999, which I thought was pretty funny. Signing $1 short of $1 million. And of course they have De'Erica Hampe, who was incredible, especially after the All-Star break last year, where she averaged darn near 20 points per game, 8 rebounds, and shooting 60% from the field. And they also brought back Erica Wheeler and brought in Ariel Atkins with a sign and trade, of course, sending Rickea Jackson to Chicago. And with these moves, it's also going to put Cameron Brink on the bench, which I think it's going to be, it's going to be good for Cam Brink, because look, Cam Brink is is a really good young defender, but one thing about Cameron Brink, she's got to learn to defend without fouling. I mean, every time you look up, Cameron Brink is in foul trouble, and I think her being on the bench and being able to learn from the vets, I think it's going to work out really good for Cameron Brink's development. And of course, we can't forget about them drafting Tanaya Latson, coming from South Carolina, a couple years removed from being the nation's leading scorer when she was at Florida State, and I can see her making an impact, scoring the basketball when she gets some minutes, coming off of the bench. And listen, everything is pointing to LA making the playoffs as far as 2026 is concerned. They have the pieces to do it. They have the bones to do it. And I can see them breaking through as far as the postseason is concerned. All right, next up, let's go to the Dallas Wings. And of course, last year, a disaster for Dallas. Only 10 wins, finishing dead last in the WNBA standings. Of course, they fired Chris Koklanis after 1 year, and they brought in Jose Fernandez, who is making the jump to the pros after coaching at South Florida for 25 years. And Dallas, they had a really good offseason, one of the best off seasons of any team in the league this year. And this is a team, folks, who is massively improved on both sides of the basketball. They upgraded their size and their defense, bringing in the co-defensive player of the year, Alana Smith and Jessica Shepard. And this is a roster who has players who have a lot of different ways to score the basketball. I mean, Paige and Enrique are bucket getters. AZ Fudd, we know, is a lights-out shooter. And Isaiah James, who is a very early trendy most improved player candidate. I mean, she had a really good showing in the preseason this year. But I will say this. Dallas not having that true primary point guard is a concern for me. I mean, yeah, they're improved on both sides of the ball, but I still think you need that point guard who's going to speed up and slow down the tempo of the game, who's going to facilitate your half court sets. But I know that Paige is going to more than likely be the primary ball handler, but of course we know that's not really her natural position. But nevertheless, outside of that, you can't look at this team and say that they're not massively improved from top to bottom from last year. And I think Paige and AZ Fudd recreating that UConn backcourt, I think that's going to be really fun. And Dallas, I think they're going to be a really fun team to watch this season. And last but not least, we have the Portland Fire. Of course, Portland back in the WNBA for the first time since 2002. They took Bridget Carlton from Minnesota with their first pick in the expansion draft. They also have brought in Louisa Geisel-Soder, who was pretty good last year in Dallas. Carla Late, coming off of a pretty good season with the Golden State Valkyries. And listen, full transparency, I haven't seen a lot of Portland in the preseason. I saw bits and pieces of their games, and they had a decent showing in those preseason games. I really don't see them being much of a factor this year. I mean, there are a lot of unknowns with this squad. Like I said earlier, there are going to be unknowns with expansion teams. And of course, they have a rookie head coach in Alex Sarama, who wants to adopt a fast-paced system, fast-paced approach to the game. And listen, this is a team who has some solid bones, some solid pieces. I mean, we just have to see them in action. I think this is a team who may be focusing more on the future as far as they are concerned. All right, it is that time. Time to officially lock in our 2026 season predictions. So here we go. For better or worse, do me a favor and mark the tape. All right, my playoff teams. My number one seed, I'm going to give you the Atlanta Dream. I think Atlanta, with the talent that they have this year, and of course, especially with everybody thriving under Smesco and winning 30 games last year, I think Atlanta is in a prime position to finish with the number one seed in the WNBA this year. I am very high on this Atlanta Dream team. Number two, I'm going to give you the Las Vegas Aces. I mean, pretty self-explanatory. Coming off of that championship last year, best player in the world, Asia Wilson, with their veteran core and one of the best coaches in the game right now in Becky Hammon. Las Vegas Aces, my 2 seed. 3 seed, I'm going to go New York Liberty. Them keeping their vet core together, even with a new coach, matters. And if they stay healthy this year, they'll definitely be in this position as being one of the top seeds in the WNBA. 4 seed, I'm going to give you the Indiana Fever. Like I said earlier, we saw how good the Fever were with all the injuries last year. And I think an Indiana roster like this, if they stay healthy, they're going to be a high seed and they'll be in this position. And for my 5 seed, I'm going to give you the Phoenix Mercury. Of course, they're coming off of a finals appearance last year. And like I said, they have proven winners in Alyssa Thomas and Kalia Copper. And if this group stays healthy, I could see this team being in the mix of the championship conversation again as far as this year is concerned. All right, my 6th seed, I'm going to give you the LA Sparks. I think this is the year with that team. I think this is finally the year that the Sparks end up back in the playoffs. They have the roster. They have the talent to do it. My 7th seed, I'm going to give you the Minnesota Lynx. I think this is a team that's going to stay afloat early and navigate the Nafisa Collier injury. And like I said, I believe Cheryl Reeve is going to have that squad ready to play this year. And my 8th seed, I'm going to give you the Dallas Wings. This is a team that is extremely talented on both sides of the ball. I have trust in Jose Fernandez, and like I said, I think Paige Beckers and AZ Fudd recreating that UConn backcourt is going to be all types of fun. Like I said, not having that true point guard does concern me, but I think they're going to be really good, and they'll be in the playoffs this year. My WNBA Finals matchup, I'm going Atlanta Dream versus Las Vegas Aces, and I am picking the Las Vegas Aces to win the WNBA championship this year. Because listen, them, of course, like I said numerous times, having the best player in the world, one of the best coaches in the game, having arguably the greatest point guard to ever play in the W in Chelsea Gray, and of course having Jackie Young. We already know how great she is. This is an Aces squad who I could very well see going back to back again like they did in 22 and 23. So I'm going to pick the Las Vegas Aces because at this point, I don't think anything the Aces do as far as a greatness standpoint is going to surprise me anymore. And until they lose, I'm picking them to win the championship this year. All right, my season awards. My Rookie of the Year, I'm going to give you Olivia Miles. If she especially helps Minnesota stay afloat and helps them stay in the playoff race, I think Olivia Miles is going to come away with winning the Rookie of the Year. Coach of the Year, I'm going to give it to Carl Smesko. I mean, you can make a case for Cheryl Reeve if the Lynx stay afloat, Chris DeMarco if the Liberty remain a top seed, Lynn Roberts and Jose Fernandez if they find their way into the playoffs. But listen, if the Valkyries didn't go out and do what they did last year, I think Smesko would have won it last year. I think with the Atlanta Dream, especially, like I said, especially if they finish with the best record in the league, I think Carl Smesko is going to come away and win Coach of the Year. My Defensive Player of the Year, I'm going Asia Wilson, and my MVP, Asia Wilson. I mean, she's the best player in the world right now. Well, folks, I am so excited for this 30th season of WNBA basketball. I think it's going to be absolutely off the charts, incredible and exciting. I'm so happy that the players are finally getting paid what they deserve with the new CBA, and the only thing that's left to do is watch the games and see how everything shakes out. Like, comment, subscribe. Click that notification button to be notified when I post again, and also follow me on Twitter and on Bluesky at CW Talk Sports. That's CWTALKS Sports, and I will see y'all the next time. Peace.